about fun than applying himself. And now look at him, simply a technician running tests and tightening screws. Even now that he'd been through this loop several times, he hadn't bothered to call them back from their birthday messages. Part of him used the excuse that he should stay as close to the original path as possible, but he knew better. Even if this weird loop existence meant a complete lack of consequences, calling his parents was the last thing he wanted to do. Carter checked his phone one more time, 5 seconds remaining until the crosswalk kicked off the sequence. He gripped the notebook, staring at the list of things to come. A chime came from the crosswalk, and Carter began to move. The person on the right moved. The man behind Carter stayed. An exasperated sigh came from behind him. Carter kept his eyes on his notebook, counting steps in his head. "Ack," the woman said, right when Carter sidestepped. His focus moved down to the next item on the list, then the next, not once looking up. Instead, he executed movements through a combination of memory and instinct, sliding sideways when a cyclist rolled by on the sidewalk and slowing down just enough to follow in a group waiting at the front entrance of Hawk. Someone coughed, his signal to pause and wait 13 seconds, enough time to review the next items on the notebook still in front of him. Front desk hands out mobile device for the David AI digital assistant. Security guard says something about visiting group from Relive Project. Passing scientist asks what time Dr. Beckett's flight gets in. He moved through the security gate designated for employees, taking him past the lobby threshold and over to the main hallway that split in 3 directions. He stopped, leaned against the wall, and waited for the final item to come to pass. Nothing special or unique, just the sound of heels walking in a hurried cadence from his right to his left. Carter checked the notebook, waiting for the visitor's David AI to speak exactly what he'd written. "Your next meeting starts in 2 minutes, the AI said from the small mobile unit in his familiar London accent. "Oops, looks like you might be late. Should I give the meeting notice of that?" Carter mouthed the words as the visitor spoke, his voice fading down the hallway. "No thanks, I'll just hurry." David's simulated voice could still be heard as Carter put the notebook down, holding it at his side while considering what just happened. He wasn't particularly religious, though part of him wondered if he'd been condemned to some sort of purgatory. The predictability of it all, the strange exactness of everything he saw playing out as written in the notebook in his hands. The first few times, he'd felt disbelief, then curiosity, then amusement. This time, well, he guessed that was the purpose of this experiment, to figure out how he felt knowing he could predict every exact movement of every person he encountered. Disbelief, curiosity, amusement, and now the whole thing was just unnerving. Nothing out of turn, nothing different, nothing unexpected. He blew out a sigh, hands pushing back his wavy black hair. Something tugged at him, a wish for things to be different. A person walking from his left instead of his right, or the plant behind him coming to life and biting his arm, or a piano dropping out of the sky and smashing his foot. Anything at all to end this. 10 minutes passed with Carter lost in his own thoughts, but that in itself turned out to be a change. Normally, he'd take a walk to clear his head, but the list's finality wound up freezing him. All the previous loops, he'd tried to follow his original path as closely as possible, always ending back in the observation room where the accelerator started to deteriorate and a massive blast of energy struck him. Perhaps that was the only real difference, as he'd changed spots in those final moments to see exactly where the bolt landed on the floor, even using his photographic memory to draw a precise grid of the floor panels. What he could do with that information, he wasn't sure, but it had to mean something. This time, though, a weight paused him, an all-encompassing blanket that left him pondering far longer than he'd ever done. And then it hit him. He'd deviated farther from his path than before, and nothing bad had happened. Heck, if he wanted something bad to happen simply so it could, maybe it'd be best if he pushed farther.